PS Plus Extra and Premium offers hundreds of fantastic PlayStation experiences, from AAA exclusives to some golden oldies from generations past. But what are the best games to make their way to Sony's service? Well, based on the user ratings over on pushsquare.com, I've built up a list of 50 of the best PlayStation games available via PS Plus Premium and Extra as of February 2025. Of course, games do leave the service, so availability of this list is subject to change. So without further ado, my name is Aaron, this is Push Square, and these are 50 of the best PlayStation games available via PS Plus. A truly original experience, Dreams lets the player's imagination go wild, with a level creator that could result in some genuinely inspiring stuff. With a bunch of developer-made levels, Dreams managed to forge out a passionate community over the years as the possibilities of the Dreams engine was really pushed to its limit. The sequel to Resistance Fall of Man, Resistance 2, sees protagonist Nathan Hale return to America to face the Chimerans, who are now assaulting the country on both the western and eastern fronts. Joining the Sentinels, elite soldiers also infected with the Chimeran virus, this squad must keep their virus at bay whilst trying to reclaim the country. God of War 3 Remastered gives this PS3 classic a new HD coat of paint. After being knocked from the peak of Mount Olympus, Kratos must descend through the Greek pantheon, all in the aim of his ultimate target, Zeus, the god of the sky, thunder and lightning. Originally starting as a timed exclusive for Xbox, Rise of the Tomb Raider is the second in this grittier reboot trilogy, this time heading for the snowy peaks of Siberia. It's going full Uncharted mode here, which I suppose technically means it's going full Lara Croft mode, but regardless, it's a fun survival adventure. Genuinely better than it had any right to be, Guardians of the Galaxy is a fun, zany, sci-fi adventure that will have you forgetting about any movie interpretation of these characters in no time at all. It's actually got a lot of heart and it's really funny too. You can't go wrong with a bit of Skyrim. Bethesda's magnum opus has seemingly stood the test of time, even across its many re-releases. If you're looking for an old school RPG open world classic, then pick this one up for the first time, or, as I suspect for a lot of you, go back for the umpteenth. A world where androids live to serve, this branching narrative sci-fi adventure will see you navigate the android uprising, controlling and making key choices as a handful of characters. Since this is a Quantic Dream game, the various possible endings mean that it has vast replayability. Tetris Effect is a solid and addictive game on its own, but what this latest entry does is spice it up with a reactive soundtrack and visuals. It's almost hard to entirely explain what it is about Tetris Effect that is so entrancing, but it's one of those games you'll be thinking about every time your mind wanders, and when you're actually playing it, everything else just fades away. Sneaking in a few spots ahead of its sequel Rise, Tomb Raider is the 2013 reboot where Lara finds herself shipwrecked on an ancient island that may well have some horrific curses seeping through its lands. This one in particular can be a brutal survival experience and a vastly different kind of Tomb Raider experience. The first Assassin's Creed game to go somewhat open world, Black Flag lets you live out the pirate fantasy as you take to the Caribbean on a crew-filled ship, singing sea shanties and of course, dabbling in some Templar plots. An immensely deep and reflective RPG, Disco Elysium Director's Cut starts out as a simple murder mystery, but it's much denser than that. With our drunk detective Harry Dubois dealing with his own demons, you'll have to interact with eccentric characters in a volatile city. I've always thought playing Disco Elysium was like cozying up to a good book. If you're looking for an old school classic, then why not give Tekken 2 a go? This stylistic fighter plays surprisingly well in my opinion for a game that turns 30 years old in 2025. With vibrant colours and blocky visuals, it all still looks great as well in a retro sort of way. The Doom series has always been a hallmark of the FPS genre, and id Software showed that was very much still the case with its 2016 reboot, Doom. This fast-paced demonic shooter really lives by that motto of rip and tear, offering up some of the best fun you can have in the FPS genre. A PC classic eventually brought to PlayStation, Undertale is a rich RPG where violence isn't always the way. In a unique battle system, you can actually talk your way out of danger or engage in combat reminiscent of top-down shooters. This is a very unique and humorous adventure with a simple yet stunning art style. Tasked with reclaiming Earth from a tyrannous alien force, XCOM 2 is a fantastic strategy game where you'll control different soldier classes, upgrade them and their weapons, whilst tackling a near infinite combination of maps, missions and goals. There's a hardcore Iron Man mode there too for those that want a real challenge. An all-time classic fantasy RPG, Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, is available in all of its quirky glory through PS Plus. Now there is a rumour of a remake stirring around, but why wait? This original version has a sort of old days Bethesda zaniness to it that I just don't think a remake would capture quite the same. With a city destroyed and one man left with electrical abilities, Infamous lets you unleash your power as you try to bring some form of order to Empire City. However, there is also a karma system within this game which lets you choose whether to use your powers for good or evil, with your choices impacting elements of the gameplay and story. As we continue on this never-ending wait for Hollow Knight Silksong, Hollow Knight Voidheart Edition is right there for the taking on PS Plus. This impeccable Metroidvania will send you through caverns, ancient cities and deadly wastes, facing creatures in traditional side-scrolling combat. Synth Riders is a VR rhythm-based game, sort of like Beat Saber, but you're hitting spheres that come towards you and trailing light rays to match up with notes. Like a lot of these VR games, this is a simplistic yet fun gameplay premise and one that now looks better than ever thanks to the PSVR 2 upgrade over the original PSVR version. Team Ico's iconic narrative experience Shadow of the Colossus sets you off on an adventure to take down 16 enormous colossi in the hope of reviving a girl named Mono. This one is on my personal PS Plus hit list, especially after hearing that there's a lot of emotional weight packed into the gameplay as you're essentially taking out harmless giants. Yeah, Team Ico, please do put me through that turmoil. The second in the Doom Revival series, Doom Eternal, is one of the most visceral FPS experiences you will ever encounter on PS5. The blistering speed of this sequel, which focuses more intently on verticality and zipping around with jumps and grapples, really does require you to lock in, which makes it a bloody fantastic time. Death Stranding is the first new IP from video game auteur Hideo Kojima since his departure from the Metal Gear franchise. And if you were in any way worried about him losing his Kojima weirdness, you really needn't, because Death Stranding is about as unapologetically Kojima as it gets, with ridiculous fourth wall breaking narratives mixed in with a genuinely fantastic and unique traversal gameplay loop. It's a tough game to truly capture the genius of by explaining it. You're really just better playing the game yourself, which you can do through PS Plus. Resistance 3 is a PS3 action shooter and the last mainline entry in this series outside of a PS Vita spin-off. This entry in the series veers further into the post-apocalyptic vibes as the murderous Chimera try to wipe out the human race. This is firmly in that muddy filter era of PS3, which inspires a bit of nostalgia on its own. PS1 RPG Wild Arms sees a warrior, a princess and a rogue venture across the wastelands of Filgaia in search of an ancient relic that could very well save the world. Originally released in 1996, this game actually spawned a whole series across manga, an anime and even toys. Take it back to the original with Resident Evil Director's Cut. Discover the horror of fixed camera angles as either Chris Redfield or Jill Valentine navigating horrid zombies and abominations created by the nefarious Umbrella Corporation. The director's cut actually mixes up locations of enemies and loot for this game so that those that memorized it back in the day could come at it with fresh eyes. Ubisoft released this brilliant side-scrolling platformer back in 2013, offering up riotous beats to go along with rhythmic levels, and you could play the whole thing with friends in split-screen co-op. This floaty-armed weirdo has never been more fun. Ratchet & Clank Tool of Destruction is a galaxy-spanning sci-fi adventure from the lovable PlayStation duo, with a lore-expanding narrative regarding mighty clashes between the Lombax people and the Kragmites. This is a killer series, and a little bit of a spoiler here, it's not going to be the last you'll see of it in this list. From one early days PlayStation icon to another, the Sly Collection is a remastered HD collection of this stealth action series, including Thievius Raccoonus, Band of Thieves, and Honor Among Thieves. This is a mischievous, family-friendly series that hasn't seen any love in over a decade at this point, but thankfully we can still play the original trilogy through PS Plus. Bethesda's 2008 post-apocalyptic RPG has seemingly once again stood the test of time as it takes our number 22 spot. Bethesda really stepped things up with an immersive, expansive and wickedly dangerous open world which contained communities filled with their own tales and an abundance of horrid apocalyptic mysteries to unfold. A narrative roguelike with best-in-class third-person shooter gameplay, Returnal is a one-of-a-kind type experience from Housemarque, who really upped the ante after the already brilliant Resogun and Matterfall. It's certainly not for everyone, but if it clicks with you, you won't be able to put it down as you explore a haunting alien planet. Spider-Man Miles Morales is a sort of spin-off sequel to Marvel's Spider-Man, where you of course take control of Miles Morales, the young and unsure superhero left on his lonesome to take care of New York City. With a wintry New York to explore and a far more focused experience, this is good superhero fun and a great setup to Spider-Man 2, which at this time isn't available through PS Plus. Tapping in for Bethesda, Obsidian crafted up what many consider to be the best entry in the Fallout series. Fallout New Vegas is set in the dusty apocalyptic plains of Las Vegas, with a smattering of wisecracking gangsters, mutant dangers and character building systems to invest yourself in. A new setting and improved powers, Infamous 2 takes what works with the original and tries to improve it. Whether the story is better or not, that really depends on who you ask, as returning Cole McGrath chases down and confronts the all-powerful Beast. However, you've got some baddies to take down, a new city to explore, and the karma system once again returns to alter your personal experience with the game. Originally released in 1998 on the original PlayStation, Ridge Racer Type 4 has received the PS Plus treatment with up rendering. This is a classic arcade racer with funky music tracks, blocky visuals, and high-speed gameplay. It's a vibe. A PS1 icon remade, Final Fantasy VII Remake is the ambitious first chapter in Square Enix's trilogy retelling. As Cloud Strafe, a mysterious mercenary, you must take the fight to Shinra, a mega corporation destroying the world with its excessive consumption and reliance on the natural resource of Mako gas. With some truly memorable characters, this is really some of the best the franchise has to offer. One of the very best PSVR and subsequently PSVR 2 games out there, this impeccably simple VR shooter has you dodging bullets and shooting enemies in time to the beat. It's an intense workout, but it makes you feel like a champion too, with awesome tracks and higher difficulties to really test yourself. I adore this game and I actually have the platinum for it. A family-friendly showcase of the power of the PS5, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart is a ridiculously fun 3D platformer with best-in-class graphics and animation, and some incredible levels as you jump back and forth between different timelines and universes. People just love some GTA 5. As we take our way closer to the ever-impending release of GTA 6, GTA 5 is still worth checking out to this day. Of course, you have that expansive base campaign with its triple protagonist story, but you then have a plethora of content to work through with GTA Online, which is still getting updated. The Ratchet & Clank collection is a packaged remaster of Ratchet & Clank, Ratchet & Clank 2 Locked and Loaded, and Ratchet & Clank 3 Up Your Arsenal. This seminal series will thrust you across a sci-fi universe filled with wacky characters, nefarious villains, lovable heroes, and colourful vistas. We've seen other entries on this list, of course, and we might not be done actually either, but PS Plus lets you find out how it all began in the original trilogy. Uncharted: The Nathan Drake Collection is the best way to play the original trilogy of this iconic action-adventure series. While I think the first Uncharted game, Drake's Fortune, has aged the worst out of the three, Among Thieves and Drake's Deception still hold up to this day with some incredibly memorable action set pieces. The final Ratchet and Clank game to make this list, A Crack in Time, messes with, well, time of course, as the Chrono Scepter is used to not just fight off enemies, but repair broken objects. A shift in the series saw Ratchet able to choose which planet he was exploring freely, something we saw the return of in Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. With so many Ratchet and Clank games in this list, let me know down in the comments if this was your favourite game from the series. Before the series made the pivot to a heavier narrative tone, God of War was an epic hack and slash with boss fights too enormous to comprehend and Mortal Kombat fatality levels of violence. The God of War collection brings the first and second entries together in a remastered package, and of course, way back at the beginning of this list we also had God of War 3 Remastered, so the whole trilogy's here. Demon's Souls is one of the best looking PS5 games currently out there, expertly capturing the very spirit of the 2009 original. Despite the sparkle, Demon's Souls thankfully keeps hold of that FromSoft feel, making it an authentic yet hauntingly beautiful experience. Regarded by some as the best of the From Software games, Bloodborne is a tough as nails Souls-like experience from the masters themselves. Taking to the gothic streets of Yharnam, Bloodborne mixes up its gameplay with no shields, instead opting for a melee weapon and a gun with a keen focus on countering and dodging enemies. We're still waiting on that remake though. Ghost of Tsushima Director's Cut is an epic cinematic journey through a Japanese island ravaged by the invading Mongols. As Jin Sakai, you must push to the very limits of your samurai code, flitting between what is honourable and what will actually save your island. The story is immense, the gameplay is immersive, this is not one you'll forget anytime soon. So in our number 5 spot we have Uncharted: The Legacy of Thieves Collection, which features both Uncharted 4, A Thief's End and Lost Legacy. Naughty Dog's Dude Raider action adventures are all a delight, as we've spoken about, but there's something even a little more mature about A Thief's End that make it one of the easiest games to replay time and time again. The gameplay of both of these games is just incredible, the action is super cinematic, and the character work on show here trumps anything in the series past, in my opinion. Number 4, The Witcher 3 is just one of those hallmark RPGs, the kind of game where a replay is always in the back of your mind. Thanks to PS Plus, both the PS4 and the complete PS5 editions are available to sink dozens of hours into. Exploring the continent on the hunt for Ciri as Geralt grumbles about the wind and rain and medieval tunes put you in a trance, it's some of the most memorable gaming experiences that you can have in an RPG. God of War Ragnarok is the second chapter of Santa Monica's Norse reboot series, where they turned the God of War franchise from an epic hack and slash, as we mentioned, to a third-person action adventure, with Kratos grappling with being a father and also the dangers of godly prophecies. This is a truly epic conclusion to this two-part saga. Taking the second place spot we have The Last of Us Remastered, and I'm also throwing in the Part 1 Remake too because it's also available via PS Plus. 20 years into a grueling post-apocalypse, Joel must transport Ellie across the USA, and what unfolds is some of the best character storytelling available on PlayStation. Shout out to the Factions multiplayer, which is only available in the remastered version. It's genuinely one of the most unique multiplayer experiences out there, and people still play it to this day. Now just a couple of spots ahead of its sequel and taking the number 1 spot, God of War was a revitalizing reboot for the series and the masterful reinvention of an iconic PlayStation character. The action is epic and engrossing, the storytelling is top class, and as a whole, with our number 3 spot, Ragnarok, put those two together and it's one of the greatest storytelling experiences on PlayStation. So there you have it, 50 of the best PS Plus games available right now. Of course, it's a slightly inflated number, there was a few collections in there, but I do want to know your favourite game that you've discovered or checked out through PS Plus down in the comments below. And when you're letting me know, remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you're so inclined. Anyway, thank you for watching, and until next time, I've been Aaron, and this has been Push Square.